Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and as always, joined by my good friend and wonderful co-host, Zak and Greg. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, mate, good. I mean, we got a point. We're already relegated, but now we're just the joint worst team in the Premier League all time.
Upgrade. Just
not the worst team.
Not the single worst, the joint worst.
But there's a lot. There's quite a few things I want to discuss today. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Once we go through, we'll go through the standard rigmarole of like setup and match and that kind of stuff. But other than that, there's some things that have happened that I'm like, huh.
Well, we played some football, mate. That's
yeah.
And we celebrated our last-minute equaliser like it was a victory. But it's good to get. We talked before how about some draws feel like a win, and some feel like a loss.
That was
win.
Definitely considering how upset the West Ham fans were, and how at one point we were like, we should have gone for Graham Potter, and I'm kind of there like, he made a 14th place West Ham team end up in 17th. Flynn Downs had James Ward-Prowse in his back pocket for a bit of the game. It was a very bizarre thing. His free kick effort sailed over Ramsdale. What a bizarre game. What a bizarre game. I thought we were going to do standard Saints things, and we didn't, because it turns out if you keep the players on the pitch who do really well on the pitch, i.e. down to Nugachukwu, you get rewarded. And we never thought he'd score a goal, mate. Do you remember that? Do you remember that absolute? He took a shot off. I want to say like against Bournemouth or something. It was like months back now, and we were like, "Good grief! I hope he never takes another shot." And me and you,
someone who sits and watches his warm up and his shooting practice every week at St Mary's, I can safely say I never thought he was going to score.
For all the players, man. But then because obviously we had our standard frustration, and I'm pretty sure I predicted the lineup down to a T. Apart from, I said that maybe Ross Stewart would start instead of Onuachu, and then obviously they brought Onuachu off.
You did caveat that with if Onuachu was fit to start. I think we can call that a win, mate. I think that's a big tick for you.
Yeah, but at this point, it's just it's like, of all of the players we've got who still wants to play football, I think my only big surprise was there was none of the sort of youth prospects that we all thought he'd play on the bench. We had no Jay Robertson on the bench. I don't know if it's just because he signed a big new contract and had his debut the other day, and they just wanted to.
That was it. That was what the debut was. That was just the sweetener to get the contract over the door. Now we won't ever see him till the end of the season.
Yeah, well, maybe that, or but for me, maybe it's also like, hey, we don't want to do what we did with Dibbling and introduce him at the beginning of the season, and now have to fight off like some of the ways that I was watching, because obviously I live in an undisclosed location which allows me to watch TV. They were very heavy, like, oh, he needs to go. If he gets an opportunity to go, he needs to go. And I was getting annoyed at how biased it was.
I think I was watching from the same country as you this week.
Yeah, it's crazy.
With our international jet set, where when we can't make away matches, we have to fly out and.
It's just part. If they made it easier to watch it over here in the UK, it would be so much easier. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. Actually, that commentator in particular was doing my head in. Because the only positive thing he had to say about Southampton was how good our fans were, which he's not wrong, but also does he need to keep repeating that over and over again?
Good grief. And it's like, they're so good. Kudus was so good, but he was a bright spark last season. Kudus. Why are they taking off Jadon? Oh, do you realise there's two teams here? Like, I understand that you don't care because we're relegated. I understand that you don't care, but ultimately we drew. And again,
probably should have won, right?
Oh, towards to be fair, like first half, the amount of misses we had, I was getting wound up because I was like, this is going to end up being, I think about 80th minute. My wife can attest. I was just sat there screaming like at the TV, like, you are paid so much money to score goals. None of you can score goals. Getting so infuriated because
Walker Peters should have done better with his run, right? That
Walker Peters should have done. Solomana should have put away.
That's a bit unlucky.
Yeah, but he should have put some away. We should have struck when
Diblin had one.
He did have one that went over. Jack Stevens even had one, which it should have been like, it's a team full of.
Save, to be fair.
Yeah, but it's a team full of like a lack of confidence. But the problem is it's so funny that like years later, managers later, something in the DNA of Southampton's football club is that like unless we have a striker that is properly firing, the entire rest of the team collapses. I remember Hasenhüttl, of all people, being interviewed, right? And he was talking about how, do you remember he was like, we need to start seeing goals from elsewhere. I think this was actually criticism of Pella. That was what the criticism was for, right? Graziano Pella was being criticised for like not scoring as many goals, and him being like, yeah, we need to start seeing more goals from places like Jordi Clasie and Romeu and stuff like this. And it's just like, it's something that's existed for years in Southampton's DNA.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the one thing you can't blame our team for this season, because with the few goals we've had, they've been
diverse. They've
anywhere.
Come from there was that same commentator at one point was like, West Ham from set pieces have been awful. You'd want at least 6 goals from a centre back. I'm like, mate, Paul's our top scorer on 4.
Okay, so we were definitely watching exactly the same, because good lord, I was like, 6 goals from our centre backs. Like, but admittedly, at one point that probably was on, but our top goal scorer with 4, and it's really show. I think for me as well, it shows that there seems to be some sort of disconnect with how a lot of the relegation teams actually are quality wise, and and all I can say is I look forward to Burnley trying to get 0-0s for the entirety of next season and getting absolutely battered and not scoring. So
going down to the best league in the world, mate. In the Championship, I don't know if you saw the graphic, but there is not a single team that's in the Championship at the moment that's confirmed with their place in the Championship next season. All of the teams can either go up or down.
That is so mad. But then that's the problem, is that then they'll come up, and again, it's not going to be our problem next season, but I think it will be interesting to watch from the sidelines. But for today's game, it was just nice to watch us play some football, and it was nice to be frustrated at us not scoring as opposed to being frustrated at us not even having a shot. The shots mainly weren't on target. Manning was kind of at fault for the goal. There's a couple of things that are just annoyances, but
the goal was like it's the piece of individual brilliance.
Yeah, Jarrod Bowen, isn't it?
And I mean, and
exactly what happened the game before.
It wasn't just Jarrod Bowen either. It was a good counter attack, but by good play from Kudus as well. And it's just the difference in quality. It's the same as it's been all season. Their goal was just a moment of quality from a player of quality, and we're short of that. So
I got some thoughts to hear after a word from our partners at Bionic.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionic, the world's most personalised supplements. Bionic provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionic. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body.
So let's talk about edits and cuts here so that I have keywords to search for later. And we're back. Okay, Zach, I want to talk to you about the main thought I've taken from this game. And it's something that we've talked about a lot since firing Juric and bringing it back. And it's something that I've harped on about since how Pep Guardiola ruined football, right? Now, Simon Rusk has come in and has players playing in positions they're comfortable in their natural positions, and playing football, and has turned it back to basics, and from that has been our most successful manager of the season in the 3 games he's taken charge, right? Should we have just kept him on after Fulham? What was the point in Juric? This isn't just fully backs up, right, that philosophies can overcomplicate and ruin football. Because this quality has been in the squad to just play basic football and grind out plays,
I think that they brought Juric in. Juric was like, yeah, I'm going to do what I can to keep us in the Premier League. And then Juric basically had a punt at the Premier League and failed miserably because he tried to influence the style, upset a lot of people, ruffled a few feathers, both good and bad, as I think some of the players have fed back. Some of them probably needed to hear you're rubbish, but also telling everyone their championship quality week in, week out has got to do anything to a person's mind. If you're told you're rubbish by your boss consistently, that isn't great. You might potentially be rubbish, but sometimes it's like knowing when to build confidence and knowing when not to.
Yeah.
So for me, as I pointed out before, it was kind of a waste. If they were definitely going to fire Martin, then yeah, what was the point? Because I think that they expected Juric to come in and do significantly more. That's the only reason I think they did it. So they thought it was a good start that the first time they got rid of Martin, they got a draw, and then they probably thought they would build on that. And the West Ham last game was
draw was Rusk
closer.
As well, anyway, right?
Yeah, Rusk. So it's Rusk. That's what I mean. Is they got a draw with Rusk, and then they thought, right, we'll bring this new manager in, and then he'll reinvigorate the squad. And that obviously didn't happen. And we got that one win against Ipswich, which I'm not saying we expected it, but between the two sides, we expected it more of our fans, I think. And yeah, you've got to the point now that Rusk has been in. So for 3 games, he has managed to take 2 points out of 9, which in any other club would be, I don't know, not ideal, pretty bad. But like, you look at where we are we look at our position. 2 of the points
it's like a fifth of our points all season, mate.
Two of the points that we have got this season have been gotten from this interim manager and not the main manager of the club. And that, when you think about it, is kind of crazy and quite frankly just upsetting. And it's what a crazy world. Waste of time, mate.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't know what's going to happen next season, but I would presume that it would be taken very negatively if we carry on with Rusk and Lallana.
Why?
Which, fair enough. I mean, okay, I don't know. The jury's out, right? There's a risk of it, being overcomplicated, but irrelevant of that, it goes to show that taking it back to basics is important. What I actually want to ask, Zach, is if we hadn't have brought Juric in and Rusk just took over for the rest of the season, at that point, they accepted that we were basically down because we were basically down.
And they said that at the beginning of the season, basically.
Do you think we'd have more points now? Just playing basic football?
Yeah, I've told you this before. I've been harping on about it for ages, mate. Some of the games we should have played for maybe draws. Some of the games we should have set up to defend better. It's instead of having this like you need to stick to this like a little bit. Well, again, like there are loads of problems with Juric in the sense of you hit the nail on the head immediately. Playing players in the wrong position and then expecting them to know what to do, and then changing the entire way we defend to this weird man marking thing that we were shipping like 3 or 4 goals a game, and he was brought in to defensively shore us up. It is insane. And again, like I think that they went, well, this is just a guy who's a coach for the youth team. So what we'll do is we'll bring in a real manager. Juric is the one we've got on our books, who's our favourite guy. We wanted him in before Jones. They brought him in. They thought he would do it. And like they've been shown that, actually, sometimes the grass isn't greener, which is, I'm not saying we should keep them on for the entirety of the championship season. I just think that from our extensive debates, I don't think that realistically I'm happy with anyone being in charge.
Yeah,
and that's
it's
the
hard,
problem.
Right? There's no right answer.
People are saying Danny Roll's the answer. Look at the Sheffield Wednesday track record of the last couple of games. And the problem is he starts the season with Saints like that. How quick before we turn on him, right? We were already some people were already turned on Martin like 2 or 3 games into the championship season.
Yeah.
Whether or not that would have changed things, probably not. But it's a fickle game, and I think that we all forget we're just armchair pundits at the end of the day. None of us are actually and watching them play basic football and being able to put strings together. And again, realistically, the goal that we shipped today was a bit of brilliance, as you pointed out, but also on top of that, it was they were able to, that was just, again, like a mistake from an individual a little bit. And again, the fact that we got hit on the counter as good as we did. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. We keep saying, we keep talking about it because, my word, we can speak about it for hours. But when everyone is going, like, when people are saying Danny Roll because he's been here before and look what he did for Wednesday. And then the flip side is you being like, we're going to bring back Sam Allardyce, which just gives me horrible heart palpitations and nightmares. And then I'm sat there in the middle, like, who would I ideally want in? And then you've got people going, Gary O'Neill, ex-Portsmouth player. And I'm like, no to any of these. I don't know what will make me happy. And part of me, I think I said, like when we brought Juric, is maybe somebody that has been scouted extensively for like nine months in the background by Spurs to come in, and we've never heard of him, and he does really, really well in the Championship. Or you bring through a new manager that nobody's ever heard of before, somebody like Rusk, maybe somebody like Kalana. I don't know what the answer is. I just don't think that there's going to be an answer that any Saints fan is happy with.
There's no one unifying answer.
There's no
one single truth.
And I also don't think that we are any closer to knowing. And just because everyone's like, oh, Danny Roll's been in negotiations, that's fantastic. There are still 6 games left. That's at least 6 weeks before even anywhere near preseason. I think that if you think that they're just signing up the first name they had in their list, you're nuts, because that's what we've done the last couple of times, and that didn't go too well. So, at least
what that means is that we have got the easiest 6 weeks of content available. Don't worry about it. Anyway, we've got some more talking points and some more thoughts on the game. But first, a message from our partners at Zencaster. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencaster came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencaster.
Right, so I do actually remember my points this time round, mate. I know where you won't notice this, listeners. Anyone that watches probably will, because there's just going to be a massive jump cut where Greg said, "All right, we're back. So Zach, what's your point?" And I stared into oblivion for about 30 seconds with no idea of what I was going to say. And what I actually was going to say, but got distracted by a message from Greg during the advert, was one of the things that I thought was very interesting was that West Ham did almost a Saints. And it reminded me almost, again, talking of throwbacks to the Hasenhüttl days, of like when we go 1-0 up against poor opposition and then go, we've got to defend this lead with our life. And then we take off everybody, chuck on all of the defenders, and then all of a sudden they equalise. And then you're sat there with like Yoshida, Stevens, and everybody at the back.
17th for a reason, though, aren't they, mate? Like, it's not surprising anyone that West Ham aren't like the top level of opposition, like absolutely hammering us 6 or 7-0. Like, it's just.
But I just
is one of the closer games that we can expect. I mean, we've got a couple more coming up, right? Where we should expect it to be pretty close. But
our substitutions didn't hurt us as much as they had previously, and I guess what I can't figure out
really
is because
do anything either, though, did they?
They didn't do anything either. Don't get me wrong, but where I'm at is that they didn't lose the ball as much. Apart from that one, I think it was Wellington took a strike and it just hit a West Ham player and let them go on a counter. And I can't remember who made the interception, but fair play to them. But yeah, I guess that was a bit of a hairy moment. But like, I think that's, again, is it to do with the quality of West Ham's quality off the bench, or is it just to do with the fact that Potter went, let's chuck a bunch of defenders on? I don't know. One of the two. Bit of column A, bit of column B. But yeah, again, maybe West Ham are there for a reason, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, we're at the point of the season where the table doesn't hide any truths. Like, if you're 17th, it's because the entire season of form has put you in 17th. Like, it's not.
But it also shows you how brutal turnarounds can be.
In the same way that, you know, we're 20th because we have been bad. What did you think of the positive change and change in shape that comes with Hull Bellis off for Ross Stewart?
I mean, we kept attacking towards the end, and then eventually we scored a goal. So it can only, for me, be a good thing. Again, like after that, we did have a lot of attacks. They didn't manifest into anything, but that's because we're bad at scoring. In fact,
say something, Zach, that's going to immediately make you laugh.
Oh no!
Is it a positive sign of like versatility and adapting tactics in a match, like something that we might have been saying is like the 101 of managing teams.
Well, so what you're saying is that if we're going to bring off a defender and go to a back four, we don't just randomly bring on Jack Stevens and then put him in striker position or whatever.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Look,
you adjust to the tactics of the team playing you. You play players in their positions, and you kick the ball at the goal, and sometimes it pays off.
Nah. That's you haven't. It's too complicated for that, mate. that's.
I saw an interview with, I think it was the Cardiff City manager this weekend, and I don't know if the particular member of the press who was interviewing him had done something prior to the interview to upset him. But what the interview went was, "What happened today then?" And he's like, "Well, we didn't score as many goals as they did, so we lost."
Yeah, but look, observations.
If you don't kick the ball in the goal, you don't win.
Observations like that are observations we have also made multiple times throughout the season. If they were the be-all and end-all of football, we wouldn't have a daily podcast about football.
But
that is how your mate who hates football talks about football. Just bored, isn't it? Just kicking a bag of air in the goal, and you're like, yeah, there's so much. But also, look at that Man United game the other day, where me and you were sat there at the edge of our seats. Neither of us Manchester United fans. I was kind of hoping that they would lose, considering how many ex-Saints they have at Lyon. But towards the end, when Harry Maguire goes up front and scores with his head, that's football. You're trying to explain this, and even Charlotte, my wife, was at the end of her seat, bouncing off, going, "This is crazy. This is such a crazy game." I'm like, I know, right? Mad. And yet, but but I guess if you've, it does boil down to it is a sport. There is a goal.
That's the thing, right? You want to add these complex layers in, fine, but you've got to start with the basics, and the basics are players are set in a position because they have played in that position for a number of years to get to the point where a professional Premier League level club has signed them to play in that position. So to then think, nah, he might be better at... I know that he's our top goal scorer. Let's just play him at centre-back because he's got a left foot. Like, you've got to do the basics first before you get to that added layers of complexity. And I think that's been our story all season, really, right? We just tried to run before we can walk.
Everything's been fun and complicated. And as Russell Martin said, if I
who else always used to try to run before they could walk, Zach? Musa Gineppo.
You're not wrong. Oh, bless him. He cared. He cared, though. Yeah. Which is like Lianco. He cared. He looked like he was going to knock somebody out more often than not. And he really did sign his own ex out of the club in that game. We were knocked out by Gillingham. I don't want to mug off the club by not remembering who they were. But when you're knocked out by like a League Two side on like a Wednesday night, when you have Premier League players, and that's the last. I think that was the last appearance for both of those players, actually.
Well, yeah.
So there you go. Maybe things will get better. Who knows? But like, I watched a game of football today. It actually looked kind of similar sort of skill levels across the board. It was like watching a game it was like watching a normal Premier League game from way back when.
Most importantly, and the key piece of optimism we're going to take from this episode as we swiftly run out of time is that we watched Saints today. It didn't ruin our weekend. We are no longer the single worst Premier League team in history. We are the joint worst Premier League team in history.
Que sera, mate. We're going to Coventry.
I mean, look, I've looked at the championship table, mate, and they might come up above us. So
it's going to be exciting.
Roll on next season. Look, we will be back on Tuesday. We're going to take the bank holiday off and enjoy a sweet, sweet draw from Saints. Until then, what did you think? Was that the last positive moment to come of the season, or is it just onwards and upwards from here? Is Russ going to do enough between now and the end of the season to take over for next season? I'm sure that we will find out in due course. Zach, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you everyone for listening. Hit us up on all the socials. Happy Easter, everyone, and we will be back on Tuesday. Bye!
Every club.
Every day.
Global Sports Podcast Network.